Hey, the meeting is now being recorded. So thank you again as we kind of get started this morning. And so we wanted to open up with just some good news that you're seeing as you've come back after your break and you're hopefully you were all able to rest and rejuvenate and prepare for 2025. So if you would like to put into the chat box or come off mute to share some good news that you have, whether it's in your personal life or um, in your professional life. If you're seeing any great things happening with your middle of the year data or anything else, we'd love to hear some good news. My good news for 2025 is with my two missionaries that are out, I get one of them back this year. So I do get to see her. She'll be returning in July. So we just got her release date of July 9th. So I'm super excited. That's my great news. And for my new year as we start this 2025 year. Anybody else like to share anything or put some things in the chat box that are great news that you have for us?
I'll just share. My youngest, he turned 16 in February and he just passed his driving test. So I'm excited for that. I mean, it does mean less time to have conversations in the car, but anyone who has children knows how exciting it is when they get to drive themselves to their own activities and all their practices and everything. So we're on the countdown until his birthday so he can get his license and all those things. So
Yay. Except for the other side of that is the cost of insurance that gets to go up with it. So,
yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
just don't let him get a ticket. Okay, so we're not hearing anything else coming off, anyone else coming off mute. So I am going to introduce Shipla. I'm going to say it correctly. Duvor. Did I get
Yeah.
that right?
Shilpa Devor.
Shilpa Dubor.
Yeah.
So from Scribble, and she is here with us today to talk to us about Scribble and the amazing opportunities that we have with this partnership. So I will turn the time over to her.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Shilpa. I'm the head of customer success at Scribble. And I'm really here, honestly, as a former educator. I was a teacher for many, many years, both in middle school and high school, taught history, and I actually used Scribble in my classroom. And it was an amazing tool for my students, really, really helped them jumpstart their research, their writing skills, and just their overall literacy. And so I'm excited to be here today to chat with you about what Scribble can do and how it can help teachers in the classroom. And so I will go ahead and share my screen. Please feel free to pop any questions into the chat. And I know this presentation is going to be made available to you all. So feel free to follow along. All right. So first I wanted to start off by saying Scribble is not new to Utah. If you haven't heard of us yet, no worries, but we've been around for several years now already and plan to stick around for the foreseeable future. So honestly, we have a lot of teachers and students who love us, who use us all the time. And so I just put a few quotes up here. I figured I could talk all day, but honestly, the word of your teachers is probably more valuable than anything I could possibly say today. And so you'll see I highlighted some things in bold on this slide, that teachers have said about us. So, a few teachers have said that in their 25 years in the classroom and library, they've never used a tool as efficient and helpful as this one. And they've had past students come back and tell me that even if their current teacher isn't using Scribble, they still use it because they love it. And if anyone as a literacy director is thinking about this, about AI and its role in writing, and, the whole idea of AI plagiarism, Teachers really love us because we help prevent AI plagiarism. Each of the steps in the writing process is traceable and evident, both to the student and the teacher. So I think we're a really, really great resource for that as well. So we'd like to start off by talking a little bit about the problem, like why did we even spend all of this time developing this product? And really what it comes down to is that the vast majority of secondary students are struggling with demonstrating proficiency in both research and writing skills. And I know a lot of you may work at the elementary or upper elementary level. And as we know, anything that happens in secondary can, kind of trace back down to elementary. And so we've got to start as early as humanly possible. But yes, a staggering 73% of 12th graders do not write proficiently. And that really hurts them when they either are going into the job market or are going into the post-secondary pathway of their choosing, whether it be 2-year, 4-year, vocational tech, etc. Why is it so difficult? Why do we have this huge skill gap? And really, in our experience over the years, we've just seen that research and writing is really hard to teach and track. And it's hard to do. It's a really complex set of skills and takes a lot of time to master. And it's process intensive, right? We've seen that students and educators sometimes cobble together multiple apps and to just do this process. And it's really hard for students to stay organized. And it's really hard for educators to access and assess all of that student work. So we outlined some of the stages in kind of the research and writing process here on the right-hand side. And we like to think of Scribble as the container for that entire process from start to finish. So think of us as kind of the research and writing infrastructure that teachers can easily use in their classroom. And so every single step of the way, from whether students are gathering sources, whether they're annotating any of their sources, they're organizing their thoughts, they're writing and collaborating with their peers, they can do all of that in one place in Scribble, and it makes it super easy for the educator. So we like to say that Scribble does for writing what we ask students to do in math, which is show your work, right? Don't just show me the last thing you did, but show me all of the steps that you took to get there. And so some things that educators in the classroom can do with Scribble: one, they can easily disseminate common text. So if you have one text that you want all of your students to read and mark up and annotate, you can do that with a click of a button. You can help students develop those literacy skills with that close reading. Students can also collaborate in real time on certain sources or documents or whatever you'd like them to read. And you can track progress really, really easily in Scribble. I think this was a game changer for me as an educator using Scribble in my classroom. I knew exactly where my students were at, who was behind, who was flying ahead. And so literally on my prep, took me 5 minutes to take a look at some of the progress analytics that we have in Scribble that I'm showing you here. And I know exactly who to kind of intervene with in my class. And it's also a great place to centralize all of your feedback for all your students on every step of the writing process. I know there's a fair amount of upper elementary folks here who might work with that set of teachers. I will say Scribble's sweet spot is typically like 6 through 12. But we've had several upper elementary teachers, 4th, 5th, 6th, also use us pretty regularly. And so some of the benefits of using Scribble in an upper elementary classroom would be, and we've heard this directly from teachers, is that we make the work easier. So some of those middle school skills can actually be brought down into an upper elementary classroom, so whether that be learning how to just organize writing, whether that be learning how to pick evidence from a text, whether that be learning how to write an argument statement or a claim, like those kinds of things that typically maybe we might wait until a little bit later to do. Some of the work is much easier in Scribble, and so students just spend less time trying to figure out how to do it, and so some of those skills can be brought down. They've really focused on using Scribble to focus on literacy. So number one, practicing those close reading skills and reading with a purpose. You can annotate anything on that's web-based on the computer with Scribble. So if you have students who are using iPads in upper elementary, any like thing that you want them to read, they can have Scribble on their iPad and go ahead and annotate whatever source you want to put there. So you can preload sources to students' libraries in Scribble. And so whatever you want them to work on, whether it be in a group or individually, super easy to do. And so we know a lot of upper elementary teachers have students read and annotate and practice those skills in groups. We're also very customizable as a platform. You don't have to use all parts of Scribble. If you don't want to, you can use only the most relevant parts for you. So for example, you can customize assignments so that maybe all the students are doing are reading a few sources, annotating them, with annotation keys that maybe you've already set up, and then writing like a 1 paragraph response or something of that nature. So you can really kind of customize and scaffold for upper elementary students. And I see your question in the chat, Natalie. Yeah, it does work on iPads. We have several folks who, teachers and students who use it on iPads just fine. The other thing I actually wanted to say really quickly is that even if they let's say they use it in your elementary school and then they go to the neighboring middle school and then to the high school in the district, even once they'll take all of their Scribble account with them, since we're a statewide contract in Utah, Scribble is free for every single student and teacher in the state. So it doesn't cost anything, and we provide PD and training options. And so it's a tool that they can use with them as they go throughout their schooling in Utah. And even once they graduate high school, they can take it with them to college or wherever they choose to go post-secondary. So really great tool for them to just develop fluency with and use it for the rest of their academic career. So some upper elementary use cases. We know a lot of folks who use it for close reading skills. They preload sources to a student's library. They assign students to annotate a source in a group. They enable the sources and annotations tab of a student's library only and kind of leave off some of the other stuff. Some teachers also have students practice writing, like starting to scaffold that process and do like mini papers. So they might enable all the tabs in a student library, which would include an outline and a paper, but they might add like a scaffolded template for a free response. So they're not just writing with no prompt or no organization. They might help students practice using an add sources button for an outline. So just practice helping getting used to adding evidence into an outline or writing an outline. They also have used this to help teach citation, that like just the concept of citation, you need to, when you're reading and pulling something from something, you need to actually cite that source. And we make citing super simple, really easy. We capture all of that information automatically for students. And so you can use our little citation sidebar to teach students about the different elements of citation, what goes into a citation. And then students can practice developing a bibliography with like 1 click. Yep, Colleen, this is free. So it does not cost anything at all for this year. And shouldn't next year either. Yeah, exactly. We like free things. I just want to say we also support accessibility students for whom English is a second language and world languages. We know that there are a lot of students with different needs, and we take universal design pretty seriously. So we have some read aloud functions, translation functions, definitions, synonyms, all of that good stuff. So students who maybe might struggle a little bit with reading, this can really help them as well. And somebody asked earlier, does it work on iPads? Yes, it does. And we integrate very easily into the classroom. Any school that's using any of the things that are up on this slide, we integrate with very well. I know in Utah, Canvas is the #1 kind of system that's used, and we integrate very seamlessly with Canvas and are developing some even better integrations as I speak. Okay, my last slide, and then I'm done. Like I mentioned, this is a free tool. Some initial training I think is really helpful. And so if you're interested in that, I'm the person you talk to. And so I would be happy to bring a training to your district, to a school, to a set of teachers maybe that you coach. One thing I want to say is like definitely leverage your librarians. We've trained a ton of librarians, especially at the secondary level. So that's one place that I would go. I actually, we can also do an in-person like district-wide training depending on the number of people and location and time. I'm putting a picture of actually me doing an in-person district-wide training at Canyon School District. So we did one in November, and next week I'll be in Utah doing a couple more in-person district-wide trainings at 2 other districts. We can also do virtual if that's easier. And then if you want to learn how to maybe be more of a trainer, if you would like to be trained in Scribble so that you can train other teachers you work with, we also offer that as well. And so if you'd like to stay informed and also get updates, but maybe you're not quite ready to do additional training right now, that's okay. We would love to hear from you. So if you all are interested in what I just presented today, I would love if you could, sorry, I'm going to put this link in the chat. If you want to fill out that little feedback form right there, it takes about 1 minute. And that will collect your information so that I can follow up with you about potential more opportunities to get trained in Scribble. Thank you all so much for your time. It was lovely to speak to you, and hope I get to hear and work with some of you soon.
And did you see the last question about how to get access?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. How do we get access to Scribble? Okay, great question. So most districts already, like we've already enabled access to Scribble. But what I would do is if you're interested in that, just fill out the form that I put in there. And just note that there's like a section where it says additional questions. And put that in there, and then I'll follow up with you. The like vast majority of school districts, we've already set up access, so you should be able to just log in pretty easily. But definitely fill out that form, and I can follow up with you just to make sure everything's squared away.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. It's such a great tool to be able to have access to. So we're super excited to get the word out so that I know that many of our upper elementary grade teachers for sure would be interested in learning more about how to be able to utilize this tool in their classrooms to support teaching and supporting their students in writing. So thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing that information. And we'll continue to share the survey link out with our literacy director email this next week. And so that if you don't get to doing it today, then we'll send a reminder out next week. So thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we are going to move on to our next item with Ed Connective. So we have Amber here with us to share an update about our Ed Connective and the exciting things that are happening and the new session that is going to be started. So we will turn the time over to Amber. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Julie, and hello, everyone. It's so good to see so many familiar names in the participants list and to see some unfamiliar names. So if this is your first time getting to hear from us at Ed Connective, I am so excited to be able to share with you today. My name is Amber Brewer. I am an Ed Connective executive coach, but I'm also our coach manager of Science of Reading Partnerships, which means I have the very great pleasure of supporting our partnership with the Utah State Board of Education to provide support to all of you and the work that you're doing to ensure that your students have access to the highest quality Science of Reading aligned instruction possible. And so if I was catching up with some of you who I've gotten the pleasure to talk with over the last year and a half that we've been partnering with the Utah State Board of Education, we would be as cold as it is here in North Carolina, which it is, uncharacteristically cold. We would probably be catching up over a cup of something warm. And one thing that I have learned in my time in education is that the relationships that you build with the people you work with are incredible, and it's unique. you can walk into any room, find out that somebody works in education, and have an instant connection with them, an instant thing to talk to them about, and you feel a sense of camaraderie. At one of the schools that I worked at, it was so incredible because the bonds that were formed between some of the staff members were so strong that even years after they had moved on to other roles or other positions outside of that school, there was still a group of staff that got together every month for dinner to catch up. And in fact, one of my best friends still to this day comes from meeting her at that school, and she is also an educator. And so if we were to catch up over a cup, I would probably ask you how your break was. Did you get to do anything fun? Did you get to relax? Did you work on anything over break, or did you actually focus on, were you able to take a step away and focus on time with your family? I would probably ask you then, what you're thinking about as you get back into this semester at your school, how are things going at school? How's that work going with that kid that you told me about last semester, or that parent, or that teacher, or that administrator, or that you are really focusing on and trying to support? And then maybe you would turn the conversation to me and you would ask the same. And I would tell you that over the break, my family passed around the crud, but it was still wonderful. We still had a great time. I would tell you that my car broke down. And though I'm really loving my new coffee grinder that I got. And then if you ask me about work, I would tell you how last semester we worked with 55 leaders across the state of Utah who met with our Connective consultants who worked on a range of incredible goals, from getting their upskilling their coaching practice to getting feedback on their new curriculum and its implementation, to how to support specific students in tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 in their programs with literacy. I would tell you with really big excitement that we hosted our 1000th session this past fall. So 1000 coaching sessions with Utah leaders have happened. And I would tell you how 20 of the leaders that we supported last fall had already signed up for spring before fall even closed. So those are some of the things that I would tell you. And then I would probably drop into a story about one of our participants who graciously allowed us to share publicly about their experience last fall, Bill Zenner from Terra. And I would tell you about his recipe for success and how he collected data from his staff to identify their needs. He worked with our consultant to create a survey to identify the needs. He collected the data, and then they worked and analyzed the data, and she supported him with identifying some surprises, some wonderings, and some implications. And one of the things that they came out of was wondering what the difference was between teachers' implementations of letters best practice and the impact that it was having on their students' outcomes. And based on this, they realized that their teachers wanted more support. And he sat down and he talked to his leadership team, and they decided to completely rework some of the ways that their structure and their leadership was working at that time so that they could provide that support that the teachers had asked, to make sure that the teachers were getting access to how to support, do the instructional practices and support students in a way aligned with science of reading. And they determined and defined some actions to achieve those next steps. This is I don't want to, this is a common example. Not that everyone's reworking perspectives, but this is the type of work that those 55 leaders were able to do with their consultant last fall. Again, what's our why? If you've never heard of us before or our partnership with USBE, We are here to offer one-on-one support for literacy leaders like you across the state so that you can support those around you with implementing and sustaining incredible literacy instruction so that you can provide the professional learning that you know is needed for that ongoing support so that you can design the structures to ensure that it's happening strategically and so that you feel confident and supported in the work that you're doing. The most important part that I underline on this screen is this is already fully funded for you by USBE. It's already available to you and fully funded for literacy leaders in Utah. Specifically, we have hosted 1,095 coaching sessions to date in Utah since our program started in June of 2023. And 29 of our participants this past fall earned their half of a USBE credit by completing more than 9 coaching sessions in their cycle. So that is a huge number. We're really excited, and that is an opportunity for anyone who chooses to participate in our upcoming spring cycle. So if you want to engage with us this spring, there's a few different ways you can do that. On January 22nd, we'll be hosting a free webinar talking about how to support, as from a coaching perspective, linking teacher actions to student impact in literacy. So how to support teachers with thinking through, like, I'm gonna implement this, what impact is that gonna have on student outcomes and literacy? Or the vice versa, I'm seeing these outcomes, now I need to implement this so that we can see the further outcome. So that's coming up on January 22nd. February 10th is the big day, save the date, for the next start of our spring cycle, where you can get access to a consultant to support you in the work that you're doing this spring and your goals. So February 10th is the magical day when meetings will start to happen across the state of Utah with Connective consultants. So if you're interested in sweetening up your next semester, sweetening up your spring, you can use the QR code or this link that I'm going to put in the chat, and that's on the screen, to sign up. We've already had many people. We've had, they've been rolling in this week with new signups, but you can sign up anytime between now and February the 10th, and even a little bit after February the 10th as well. But to get the bang for your buck, we encourage you to sign up by February 10th so that you can start strong with your consultant. If you have questions, you can reach out to me directly. I'm A. Brewer at edconnective.io. I'm going to put that in the chat. And yes, I will get the link for you, Denise, and get that in the chat. Thank you. That's a great thing. Yes, please. I'll put the link for the webinar in the chat as well. Great idea. But I will be glad to take time to talk you through what the process looks like, to share about what you can expect. But I do want to, as I close out, underscore that, like, just like the best cup of hot chocolate, Ed Connective, our services are catered to your needs, your schedule, your goals, your work. And we are really excited to continue supporting into the spring. Thank you so much for listening and being here and for the work that you do. Great question. The webinar time, I believe, is 1:30 Utah time. So the webinar will be at 1:30 Utah time, and it will be recorded for anyone who is unable to attend but would like to check it out after. So
yes.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber, for joining us. And the Ed Connective coaches are amazing. I finished my coaching cycle last fall and truly appreciated the time that I got to engage with the coach as she helped me really organize some things that we are working on here at the state level. So super excited. Also in our literacy director listserv email that will be going out today, there will be more information about the webinar that will be taking place next week. And it will have the information in that as well. So watch for that to come. It probably will be coming sometime this morning. So as that is when Charla usually sends those out for us. So be watching for that. And then So sorry. We are going to shift now to some assessment updates by Teresa McIntyre, who has recently taken a new position here at Utah State Board of Education. She is now our assessment coordinator. So super excited for Teresa and her new role, and happy to have her. Teresa, would you like to share the screen, or would you like us to share for you?
You can go ahead and share for me. That's totally
Okay,
fine. I'll
great,
just tell you
thanks.
next.
Hey, thanks.
That simplifies it. Okay, go ahead. So just a reminder, this MOI window closes January 31st. You can assess past the date set in ALO as long as you are still within that state window, because ALO only gives you a 4-week window. Make sure you get your data, your SIS codes. For kindergarten, if you do not have kindergarten in your SIS system, which is my understanding that a few SIS systems are not including kindergarten, we will share a spreadsheet with you to collect that data at the end of the year. And then Aspire does indicate reading on grade level as like that you're inputting that. It's really indicating any student at or above benchmark. So that's as a that title was put in there before we really were clarifying reading on grade level versus benchmark. So it is meaning any student at or above benchmark, because we're really wanting to identify if students need interventions, which we know is our below and well below students. And then please send out your parent letters. I included a link to some sample parent letters that also include some information around reading on grade level. And there are letters that have been translated into Spanish that you are welcome to utilize. Next. Then just a reminder, any students who are newly identified as being below or well below benchmark need to be given that diagnostic assessment and then receive those targeted interventions and progress monitoring at the required rate. So if they were green or blue at the beginning of the year and are now not. Next. And then just our progress monitoring student materials, I've had a couple of questions about this. So the ALO system does select those materials, and the selection will carry over to the next school year. So here's the example. Kindergarten student is being progress monitored on nonsense word fluency, and they use the first 8 forms in kindergarten. When they go into first grade, it will start them on form 9 for progress monitoring. And if you use all the progress monitoring probes for a student, it will start them over again at once. So it doesn't mean that you're out of luck and have nothing, but it just starts over again. Next slide. So I just wanted to take a minute to celebrate the progress monitoring fidelity and the huge increases that are a result of your work and the works of the administrators and teachers and paras and coaches at all of your schools. So you can look at this data of where we were even just last spring to this fall. You can see the percent of schools. This is not LEAs. This is actually at the school level that are above 90% at rate. And the below 50% has also dropped. And so just super appreciative of your efforts. And then if you look at like where we started, when I first started looking at progress monitoring in the fall 22 of 23 to the fall 24, 25, the above 90%, right, was only 6% when we first started. And now it's 61.4%. And yes, that's not perfect, but that is such a huge increase in your efforts to ensure that progress monitoring is happening. No, enrollments and progress monitoring does not stay the same. The system keeps track of the probes that they have previously done and will start them on the next probe if they're enrolled in the same progress monitoring measure. So you will have to put in new progress monitoring enrollment for the next year. And next slide. So just a reminder about invalidations. Please, I know that the system is a little tricky in that going back and forth between benchmarks and progress monitoring. So have your staff like checking the which measure and materials they're going to need. So there's an example. You can see that the first example is a progress monitoring passage 3 for grade level 2. The second one is a grade level 2 benchmark passage 3. And you really want to make sure, or benchmark 3, not passage 3, but the set. So please make sure that people have the correct materials. And it's always a good idea to have both progress monitoring and benchmarking materials with you when you're doing benchmarking in order to make sure you have the materials that you need to administer that benchmark measure. Next. And then I just wanted to let people know how highly skilled learners are designated within the ALO system. So if a student has been identified as a highly skilled learner and received below typical growth, there will be a little asterisk that will appear next to their pathway after that middle of year testing time, and it will show that they made typical progress. If you have a student that actually meets the criteria for a highly skilled learner, but they had typical or better growth, no asterisks will appear next to their name because their data is not being modified in any way. So the little asterisk is just an indication that their pathways was modified based on their highly skilled learner designation. Next. And then just letting you know about some middle of year data analysis trainings that we are providing for school leaders and for teachers to dive into their data and to really look at, we're going to be looking at composite scores, pathways of progress, and effectiveness of instruction, which is a report that didn't used to be available at the teacher level and now is. It's my favorite report to look at. And then I wanted to give some updates about our RISE assessment. So the RISE rating rubrics are now available on the RISE portal. And we really encourage you to share those with your teachers, especially your 5th grade teachers, so that they have an idea of what that rubric looks like and what is going to be used to evaluate student writing for both our benchmarks and our summative assessment. Next. So this is my plea. We need more students to participate, or we will not be able to offer writing benchmarks anymore. So we need 5,000 students to participate per prompt in order to get enough responses to train our scoring engine. We currently have 5,000 about 5th graders and 8th graders who have committed to doing both one informational and one argument, but we have 6 prompts for benchmarks for 5th and 8th grade, and then we have 4 prompts for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And we only have 5,000 students combined for grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th and 6th. So at this point, we will not be able to offer writing benchmarks anymore because we wrote completely new benchmarks and we have a brand new rubric, which means we have to totally train our scoring engine on how to grade those writing. So please reach out to those in your district that you need to talk to. And we really need some larger LEAs to sign up everybody to participate in our writing benchmark field test. So if you don't, we won't be able to offer them. We've developed them and we've done our part, and now it's really up to our LEAs to get students to actually participate. We do understand there's a reluctance in the fact there will not be automatic scoring. Teachers will not be able to see the students' writing. So it's kind of like that prep work in order to have it in the future. Yes, we're asking for 3rd through 8th grade participants. So we have writing benchmarks for every single grade. We did more for 5th and 8th grade because we recognize those teachers utilize them more often since they're being assessed. But yeah, we're looking for 3rd through 8th grade. And the survey is that we can provide the information to you about how what to do and when they're available. And just so we have an idea of whether or not we're going to have enough students to actually complete our benchmarking field test. Next slide. So we are going to have annotated writing samples available for 5th and 8th grades for both informative and argument. They are aligned to the new rubric. So they're going to have the text and the student example essays with the annotation and the scores aligned to our new rubric. Those should be posted to our RISE portal by the end of this month. And then we will be retiring the writing collection project because it is no longer aligned to our standards or to our rubric that we're using. And we're going to be getting additional writing samples for the other grades to add to that project, but currently we'll just have the 5th and 8th grades. There isn't a cutoff date for students to sign up. We are going to have the writing benchmarks. They'll be open in February through at least the month of March, possibly for the rest of the school year. We're still trying to decide when we're going to do our range finding, but they will be February or middle part of February and March is when they will for sure be available. And then the rubrics are located underneath the resources. So when you go into the RISE portal, the resources tab, if you select that and scroll down, you'll see writing rubrics. Next. Please use the writing training tests, especially this is really for your 5th grade students who are going to be taking that for the summative. But I'd also recommend if you are giving the benchmark that you go through the RISE training test with your students beforehand, because the prompt language has changed and we have included a lot more information and support for students about what they need to include in their writing. And so the training test will be available at the end of January again, because we've just finalized everything. And just to help them understand what that writing prompt is asking them to do, and then see the helps and guidance that it's providing for students. Next. And then we do have a RISE training video that you're available, recording that you're available to watch that's all about the writing updates. It provides more information. And then we have one around the reading updates this Friday. So we will be posting that on our USBE assessment YouTube page next week after the training. Any questions? I did see there were a few questions in the chat. I think I put a Lindsay, I am so sad to say that I had announced to assessment directors last month that Acadian's data was supposed to be transferring between students. And then I got an email yesterday saying that I had been misinformed and the person who had told me that was incorrect, and that it will not be happening this year. And so I get to go to our assessment directors on Thursday and tell them I'm really sorry that that was not true. Yes, so it is in our contract that the student data does need to be able to transfer. However, in our contract, it was that they were working on it. So we are going to be having some discussion about when that's going to actually happen and when we could expect it. My hope is that for sure, starting with the next school year, as we update our rostering that we're doing with them, that's part of that, and that it will be in place for the next school year. And yes, Kathy, I was very sad and very disappointed, and was not happy at all to see that that was actually not going to be happening. You can see students' data for individual students. Currently, they do not have any reports unless you pull, no, they don't have any reports that are showing at the student level multiple years for with their data. So their system pulls up 1 year at a time of historical data. And I do not believe they plan on changing that. That would be a complete change from the format of their website to be able to see it like MClass did, where you would see every year all together for the student. I believe theirs is just going to still be at that year by year basis. So we have other things that are definitely higher priorities for us than being able to look at the student data, year after year student data in one view. Although I do understand the value of that. So, anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, one more question just popped in there.
Yes, you can see classroom data by teacher. It is in the green arrow drop down, and you can go in and see that. And you can also, if you go into historical data, then you can see it for previous years at the teacher level. Oh, for progress monitoring. That, Amy, is on our list of requests that we would like them to add to their platform. And so we're in the next, I think the end of this month, we have a meeting where we're going to be talking about, hey, these were our requests. What do you plan on actually doing? What's the timeline looking? So we, Jared Wright and I went through, he's over Acadience Math. We went through and rated based on all of the feedback that we've gotten from all of you, like what were the things that are most highly requested and we feel provide the most value in addition, and ranked those. So some of the requests that people have made are low on our priority list because they don't have as big an impact. And some of them are super high. And so those priorities that are really high, which is one of them, is that just better progress monitoring data and the ease of looking at that information is high on our list. And so we're going to have a meeting to just discuss what does that development timeline look like. And then I hopefully can be able to provide you with some additional information about that. Yes, that is what that request is, that you can be able to look at progress monitoring data at the class level and more than just seeing the colors, but actually the numbers. So we can definitely talk to them about the parent reports, but unlike M-Class, they don't have curriculum that they're going to include that provide ideas about things that parents can do with their students, which is really the reason you have to include another parent letter, is to hit that part of the legislation. And I don't see that changing because they don't have resources to point you to, and they're not in the curriculum business, they're just in the assessment business. Yes, so we definitely are in discussions with them about some reporting changes or additions, especially around progress monitoring. And we also have made a request to be able to select multiple grades. So I see somebody in that, and select multiple grades or whole school level, because right now it is always broken up by grades and you can't look at it as from a more system level. And that is definitely a request that we have because that's beneficial to us at the state level as well as at that individual school level, right? And at the LEA level. So that is also a request that we have had that's higher on our list, is to be able to manipulate the data to select multiple grades or the whole school when looking at that information, especially on that main dashboard view. I think I answered or commented on everything.
I think you got them all. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Teresa.
Thank you.
You know, if you have any additional assessment questions, obviously reach out to Teresa and she can support you in getting you those answers. Teresa, if you wouldn't mind just dropping your email in the chat box.
Be happy to.
And so thank you so much for that. And moving on to our next thing, we're going to talk about reading on grade level and Acadience benchmark really quickly, just to kind of wrap up this whole piece about assessment. And so last week, and then just before going on like my Christmas break or my holiday break, we sent out an email with our reading on grade level percentages for the 23-24 school year. And it went out with our LV listserv last week, I believe. So, and if you didn't receive that, there is a link right there with the LEA percentages you can click on and see that. A couple of things that I wanted to be sure to point out is that we did change how it is being reported. So remember last year we were in deep discussions with our board where they wanted reading on grade level defined in board rule. So you can click on the link to the board rule in the document, not on here because this is just a picture of what was in the beginning of the document. And reading on grade level has been defined as that 405 end of year composite score for third graders or higher. So we know that to be our above benchmark students. And so those are the students that are being considered for reading on grade level. We also want to remind you that it does go through our filtering system with our students that need to be full academic year and following those requirements that are listed in board rule as well. So we are currently sitting as a state at 48.10%. And remember in the past, this had been, so when you go to, when I've had several superintendents reach out to me and say, well, where were we last year? So when you have those conversations with your LEA leaders, keep in mind that the reporting from last year was, and the previous years had been based off of that 750 Lexile score for third graders, where this year it is based off, or last year was based off of the 405 cut score. So keep that in mind that when they're looking at it, the data sets were coming from, the percentages were coming from different data sets. So just keep that in mind, still using Acadience, still using third grade end of year, but we were basing it off of a different number. So keep that in mind. When we do calculate this data, we do not go down to the school level when we have our data and statistics teams look at this. So that's another question that I've had a lot of times asked, can we see where each individual school is at? We don't have that. We don't have our data and statistics team go down that deep of a level for us. We just have statewide and LEA wide. You do have the ability to, I think when you download your data, you can kind of filter out your students by schools and by their above benchmark status of composite score. So you could kind of get a rough idea of that with some raw data on your end with your ALO data that you can see. So, and if it's been loaded in, and you can see that historical data and go back. So there is a way that you guys can do that on your end, but we don't go down to the individual school level. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me and let me know. But just know that, yeah, we don't have like school level data to do that going back that way. And then I am going to turn the time over to Courtney to talk about at benchmark and above benchmark.
All right, so Teresa kind of touched on this a little bit when she was talking about entering your scores into the SIS system. So when you enter into your SIS, you're going to enter kids in at or above benchmark. But we just wanted to share that's different than those kids that are reading on grade level. And just this is some information straight from ALO that those kids that are at benchmark, what it's saying is they have a 70 to 85% to remain at benchmark on the next benchmark time. So it's not meaning that they're on grade level at that green. It just means they have a chance of learning that with good tier 1 instruction and support, 70 to 85% chance. Those that are blue or above benchmark, their likelihood of staying on benchmark goes up to that 90 to 99%. So we just need to make sure that we're not shooting for green, but we're shooting for blue. That's the goal. We're shooting for blue for all of our kids in all of our grades because that 90 to 99% chance is a lot higher. And we want to make sure that we're giving our kids the best chance to reach the next benchmark with that instruction. And when we're looking at reading on grade level, it's this above benchmark that we're looking at. But when you're entering it to your SIS, it's the green and the blue. So we just really wanted to distinguish those. And the difference between benchmark just means they're ready to learn it versus reading on grade level, like they've really have that down and they're ready to keep learning and going. So is there any other questions regarding that? Okay.
Also, great information to pass along to the teacher level so that they're understanding, and when they're having those communications with parents, that really we want, although sometimes we get kind of complacent when we hear our students are at benchmark and they're like, oh, great, they're where they need to be. But always remember that green, and when you take the Acadience trainings, the green is always the lowest level of okay. So we want to make sure that their skills are solidified, and to ensure that we want them to get into that blue or above benchmark category. Okay. We have reached our time for break. We're about 3 minutes ahead of time, but we will still come back at 10:10. So go ahead and take a few minutes to walk, get some feeling back in your legs if you've been sitting, and grab a snack or a drink if you need to. And we'll see you back at 10:10. Thank you. Okay, it is 10:10, and so we are coming back from our break. I hope you were able to get up and stretch and move around for a bit. And welcome to have you join us back here. So we are going to talk just a little bit about curriculum and tier one curriculum and using it with fidelity versus integrity. And so we are excited. I know that we've shared this before, but just also wanted to emphasize the importance of knowing the difference between each and when to use it and how to use it, utilize it the best. And so when we look at like teaching with fidelity versus integrity, we kind of are talking in two different realms here. So when we are talking tier one curriculum, we want to teach that curriculum with integrity versus our tier two and our tier three, which we want to teach with fidelity. Fidelity meaning that it is followed exactly as prescribed. So think about it as like when you are given a prescription for your medication. So say you need an antibiotic to get rid of a bacterial infection that you have. And so, the doctor prescribes it for you to take twice a day and for the next 10 days. So the reason why why you do that is to correct the illness and make sure that it is completely out of your system. So, I know that we feel better after like 2 or 3 days of taking the antibiotic, but we still want to finish out the regimen to ensure that we have killed all the bacteria in there. So we take it as prescribed. So that is what we're talking about when we're thinking about our fidelity with our tier two and tier three. And a lot of these are our scripted programs. And we want to follow these with fidelity because, tier two and tier three have that evidence-based built into them. And the reason why they have the evidence to support that their program works is because it is done as prescribed. So with that fidelity piece. And then when we're talking about our tier one curriculum, we want to focus more on teaching with integrity. This meaning that we are implementing the core concepts of that program, but we're adapting it and adjusting it to meet the needs of our students, what they need most of, and we're picking the pieces out of that tier one curriculum to support the instructional needs that need to take place in that classroom, which from class to class and school to school, that could be completely different within an LEA, especially our large LEAs. If you have students who have mastered those phonics skills, we want to get them more into reading and more of the comprehension pieces and probably more of the writing pieces, as opposed to just continuing to throw lots and lots of phonics at them that they already know and understand. So we when we're talking about tier one, we want to make sure that we are adapting it and adjusting it. We happened to be meeting with our panel yesterday, and Ray shared a thought with us that I said, I'm going to quote that for you because we're talking to our literacy directors tomorrow, kind of around this topic of curriculum. And one thing that he said is we need to teach teachers how to adapt a curriculum as opposed to just adopting the curriculum. So, we know that when we adopt a tier one curriculum, that there are so many pieces to it and so much content with it that it's nearly impossible to do all of the pieces all of the time, every single day. And so we need to teach our teachers how to utilize their data that they're looking at to select those pieces of the curriculum that are going to be most beneficial to the students in their classroom, and using those and teaching with those pieces. We also need to think about, are the pieces that are in that curriculum aligning to the science of reading? Are they missing certain pieces that we need to add in? And how can we adjust and make that tier one work for to have the best instruction possible for our students, as opposed to just like, I'm picking up the book, I'm reading it, and we're doing it exactly how it says. We need to allow our teachers to know that they can make those instructional decisions around that tier 1 curriculum. But then with the fidelity on the tier 2 and tier 3, we do want to stick to, especially if you have adopted a program that has that scripted program that is going to be, that shows the evidence based because of how it has been scripted. So there are a couple of examples down there where with the fidelity, you know, a teacher strictly follows the scripted phonics lesson using the exact language and materials as provided in the exact sequence that it is provided. And then the integrity on the other side is the teacher uses the core phonics strategies from the program, but modifies the activities to better support the struggling readers, or if they have more less struggling readers, more advanced readers, and incorporating additional aids and differentiated practice with those students. So we just kind of wanted to share about this. You know, I know we've talked about it in the past, but just wanted to kind of reiterate and follow up with that integrity versus fidelity. And then we are going to open up some breakout rooms here in just a minute. But before we do that, I'm going to kind of preface this a little bit. So we are going to give you time. We've had a lot of feedback about who else is using this curriculum, how are they using it, how can we connect with them to see how they're implementing, what have they found that is needed to beef up certain pieces, what are the, you know, lots of different questions. And so what we thought we would do is for the next, I think we scheduled out 20 minutes. I can't remember how much time. Yeah, the next 20 minutes, we are going to put you into breakout rooms kind of based on, and let you select based off of the curriculum that you are using. And Denise, if you wouldn't mind, while I'm doing this, I forgot to set up the breakout rooms. So if you want to go ahead and create those, that would be great. So we have kind of our 3 larger curriculums that we know are being used across the state. We have Wonders. One room will be for Wonders, one room will be for CKLA, one room will be for Into Reading. And then we have our other a box. So if you have another curriculum besides those 3, you will go into the other breakout room. And what we're going to do is just give you, the time is going to be yours, and we are not going to join your breakout room. So like the state's not going to be listening in on anything that you're doing. So feel free to have those open conversations about the curriculum and what is working, how you are utilizing it to best meet your needs. And then we have created, Courtney, if you want to click on one of those links, we have created, I mean, Jamboard is gone, right? Who is upset about Jamboard being gone? I am. But so we do have these lucid charts. So if you're in the slide presentation, if you want to click on the link to that curriculum, it will open up a lucid chart, which is very similar to a Jamboard. And over on the left-hand side, you'll see a little square, and look at all the colors of sticky notes that you can choose. So you can select whatever color you want of sticky note, and then click on the chart, and then you can drag it to make it as big as you need to, and just jot down some comments and some things that you have discussed as you're talking about the curriculums, just some notes for each of you guys. And these are going to be for you to be able to go back to later on when you get back to your LEA, and you can kind of see, to remember what some of the things are that you talked about, some notes that you guys took down about what's working well, what isn't, what you could do better, maybe contact information if you want to reach out to each other at a later time, set up some times to observe classrooms in other LEAs and set those things up. We're going to give you this time to be able to do that. So we are going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. Well, any questions, first of all, any questions about getting into those lucid charts? I believe Denise was dropping the chart. The links to the charts are in the chat box. So if you're not in the slides, you can click on those links in the chat box to take you to the lucid charts as well. Any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? This is just your time to share and get support about your curriculum and what you guys are doing. Okay, looks good. So Denise, if you would like to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms, you should be able to select the room that you would like to go to, whichever one is your curriculum that you're using. And we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes, yes, Jandy, 20 minutes for the breakout rooms. And if you're struggling to get into a breakout room, let us know, and we will we can assign you to a room too if you need that support.
Julie, how do I get to the breakout room? Why am I struggling? This is Carrie.
No worries, Carrie. So down where
Does it show
you should,
up somewhere?
yeah, so you should see like 3 little dots that says more. And if you click on that, it
Where am I
should
seeing them out? Sorry. Oh, down there. Okay.
down at the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then go to break. Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Yep,
thanks.
absolutely. Okay. I think that is something that we can definitely do. So, um, Courtney, if you'll let me share my screen really quick. Where can I find? Okay. There's my share. Okay, share. Okay, so here's my thoughts on this. We have, don't look at how scary my Google folders are. So in here, everybody should have access to the elementary literacy directors folder. So if we just created a new folder in here and called it Wonders Materials. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. It just took a minute. Okay, cancel. So everybody should have access to this. It should be anyone with the link can view. I'm just going to change it to edit on just that folder. So if I drop this in the chat box to you, Chelsea. Okay, see if you can access that.
Yes, I can. And if there's a place to drop files. So
Yep.
I think it works.
Does that work?
Yes,
That
thank
work?
you. That was so
Okay.
quick. I appreciate
Perfect.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Okay.
I'm going to head back to my room. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. It looks like everyone is coming back in.
This meeting is being recorded.
And yes, we are recording. We paused it during that break so that we don't have to edit it later on. So, but while in the breakout rooms, we did have our one.
Julie,
Sorry.
you're muted.
Yeah. So while you were in your breakout rooms, Chelsea from Salt Lake from the Wonders group jumped out and asked if there was a way that we could create a place for everybody to share resources back and forth with their curriculum. And so what we did really quickly is in the elementary literacy directors folder, you guys won't see this archived group folder. That's just for us internally. However, we did create 4 folders. So we have a CKLA folder, an Into Reading folder, an other curriculum. And if you put something in the other curriculum, please label it with your curriculum. And then Wonders materials. And so if you click on that, I'm just going to jump in here. So you can see that some people have shared some things that they are utilizing or that they have curated just to be able to help and support one another. So if you have things that you'd like to share back and forth, and I hope the time was well spent where you could create Holly Harris doesn't think she has access. Anyone with the link should have access. So we'll drop the links to the folders in the chat box in just a minute. And then when we share out the presentation, we'll put those in the notes as well so that you guys have access to them there. And we'll try to remember to share them in our message as well. So sorry, let's go back here and everybody, let me grab this link. So here is the link to all of the folders there. So that should be able to get you there. And then inside the 24-25, you should have access to each of the meetings and that we have done this year so far. So, and then the March one upcoming that doesn't really have anything in it right now. So, so this will be kind of a place where you can go to be able to share resources back and forth, and to be able to support each other. And if you have any other questions about it, just let us know. Everybody should have editing rights to these 4 folders. Okay. So, does anybody want to unmute and share some things that they talked about that maybe would be good for the whole group? And thank you, Kathy, for the kind comment in the chat box. Okay, great. Well, we will go ahead and move on. I'm going to stop sharing and so that Courtney can hop back on and share. So, and I am going to turn the time over to, I believe, Courtney, and she's going to talk to you about our writing revolution that we have been diving into the book and doing a book study with. So I'll give the time to her.
Okay, so yes, we have been doing the writing revolution as a team, and we have some board members also doing with us. So I'm just going to share a few things that we have kind of learned with that. So let's see. So TWR stands for the Writing Revolution. So these are the 6 principles that they share in the book. And I'm just going to kind of go through them and share a little bit of details and examples with a few of them. So the first one is just that students need explicit instruction in writing, hopefully beginning in those early elementary grades. One of the things that kind of stood out to us in this is that written language is almost always more complex than our spoken language. The syntax and the vocabulary, you're a little bit more precise on choosing what you're going to say. And so it gives you a lot of activities that you can do to help build those foundations for later writing. And they talk a lot about in those younger grades, kindergarten, first, second, before kids are maybe proficient at writing the actual letters, is you can do all of these activities orally so that once they master the actual penmanship or handwriting piece, they've got those foundations of practicing these things orally. So even starting at those very youngest grades, we can start building those foundations. The second principle is that sentences are the building blocks of all writing. they really stressed how important it is to really make sure students can write a well-written sentence, more than just, you know, those simple sentences, but really going into helping kids vary their sentence structure and use complex syntax, adding new vocabulary, and they always incorporate it into different content areas so that it's also a way to master the content. But it really talks about we shouldn't ask kids to be writing paragraphs or summaries or 5-paragraph essays until they can really write a well-written, complex sentence. So it gives you lots of activities to do that. And I think sometimes coming from the classroom recently, like I think sometimes we want to get them writing paragraphs and maybe we move a little too quickly and not get that foundation of strong sentence writing. The third principle that they talk about is that when embedded in the content of the curriculum, writing instruction is a powerful teaching tool. So their example is that this can be used at any grade level and any content area. And if we're all writing teachers, our kids are going to become better at writing, as long as also it's a really good like assessment tool. So if the kids know a lot and can write about a content, then they have to really know it. They suggested 5 to 15 minutes of daily writing can really increase your students' learning as well in writing, like, and also in like understanding the content. So they give a lot of examples of short little activities that you can do to incorporate writing in science and in social studies and in math. And it doesn't have to be a huge, giant writing lesson, but how we can embed that into what we're already doing. The principle number 4 is the content of the curriculum drives the rigor of the writing activities. And I wanted to share with you a little bit example of this. So one of the activities that they gave us was called, or that they shared was called Because But So. And in this, they shared how you could use it at a pre-writer in kindergarten and do it orally all the way up through high school and even college. So they read the story Stone Soup, and instead of just asking a open-ended question, even that of like, what does the uncle believe about the boys? And then you would get responses from kids, but changing it a little bit to add these at the end. So you could say, the uncle believes the boys are lazy because, and that requires the kids to go back into the text and find the reasons of why the uncle might believe that the boys are lazy. And then you could change it and say, the uncle believes that they are lazy, but, and now they have to kind of see that other perspective, the other side of the story of why that might have happened. And then lastly, the uncle believes the boys are lazy. So how does the uncle treat him, or what is another perspective? And in the book, it shows tons of examples. I was actually working with some teachers recently, and they were trying to decide tier 2, tier 3 groups. And I had just read this. And so I said, well, they're like, well, that student doesn't fit in that group. I was like, so I just changed and said, why don't you think so-and-so belongs in that group? Because why? And they gave their evidence. And then I said, you know, why doesn't so-and-so belong in this group? But, and then they kind of like, well, we only have 3 groups and we have to differentiate. And so they kind of just, you can even use it when you're coaching your teachers, making them see both sides of the picture. And also, you know, so now this is what we're going to do based on that data. I think it's a powerful activity for our teachers, and it's a really simple way to change an open-ended sentence or question into making our kids go back into the text and really kind of learn about that. So then if we go back to the principles, oops, sorry, I clicked on the wrong screen. Okay, so number 5 is grammar is best taught in the context of the student's writing. So there's a lot of research that talks about grammar is really important, and the better students understand grammar, the better writer they can become. But there's as much research that says teaching grammar in isolation doesn't transfer. It doesn't transfer to the kids' work. So we really need to work on writing conventions and grammar within students' writing instead of in isolation. So keep that in mind as you're working with students and revising their work. And then the last principle that they talk about is that the two most important phases of the writing process are planning and revising. And so although all phases are important, after students get past the sentence phase and are starting that paragraph and longer writing, it's really critical to give them planning time and revising. That's where we're going to see the biggest learning happen for students to implement in later times. So it's a really great book, and we've learned a lot with it. And it kind of was some foundational stuff for us as we were looking for ways to help with writing with all of our teachers, as that was one of the areas that we've had a lot of people reach out. And after break, we're going to tell you a little bit more about some writing stuff that we have coming up. So if there's any other questions or things that people want to share, then feel free. Otherwise, I think we're ready to go on.
Hey, great. And I think we are scheduled for a 10-minute break again. So if you guys, we are just a little bit behind schedule just by a few minutes. So what we are going to do is we'll just do a 7-minute break right now, and we will come back right at 11. Okay, thank you. We'll see you then. Hey, it is 11, and so we are going to get started back into our meeting. And the next little bit, we have a lot of updates and resources to share that we wanted to kind of go over with everyone. And one thing that I didn't put in here that I'm going to just kind of like jump to really quick, and as I forgot to add it, but we are getting legislative session starts next Tuesday. Yay! So let the fun times begin as we get rolling with our legislative session. A couple of things to keep in mind with legislation to keep your eye on. We have recommended that the professional learning grant, it was up for its 5-year review. So each code has a 5-year sunset clause built into it. And what it does is it comes up every 5 years, and then we get to make a recommendation to the legislators to decide whether to continue with the funding or sunset it, allow it to sunset and not be funded anymore. So our professional learning grant is up for its 5-year review, sunset review. The state board recommended that it continue to be funded indefinitely without a further sunset clause added into it. When it went to the Education Interim Committee, it was recommended from there to continue to be funded as well. And but with that next 5-year review on it again. So that is what is going to the legislature this year that we are aware of right now. So something to keep your eye on, and we want to make sure that you guys are able to continue to have that professional learning grant funding for early literacy and early math. So as we know that many LEAs have come to rely upon that. So if you want to, you are welcome to continue to get people to email your legislators to remind them of how important that funding is to you, and so that they can hear your voices about that funding piece. So, and then I am going to turn the time over to Christine. I think she's going to kick us off with some of our updates. So go ahead, Christine.
Yes, we're finally have our writing professional learning is in place. Really quick turnaround. We just got this all settled just a few days ago. So our upcoming writing professional learning, the vendor will be Keys to Literacy, and if you're familiar with their founder, it's Joan Sedita. She was the creator of the Writing Rope. And she's just a fantastic person. So this is her company, and their mission really is to provide high quality, engaging, and practical professional development that is aligned to evidence-based literacy instruction. And I am excited for this opportunity to offer this out. And on the next slide, you'll see that this is for literacy coaches and teachers. When we did our survey, that was the audience that really was excited and wanted to do a little more deeper of a dive into writing, professional learning. We have 180 spots, so that's quite a bit. We're very excited about how many offerings of these spots we have. So up next, we have the two different opportunities. So they have one that's geared to those lower grades, and that is early writing, and that's geared for kindergarten through second grade. For kindergarten and second grade, that one is it's a course that provides the background knowledge needed to teach the components of writing instruction. And it's very much focuses on those early grades, which is really, really fantastic. We have cohorts 1 and 3, and we have dates for those. They're 2 consecutive days, and they're all-day trainings. And then we have on the other side, we also have one for content writing, and this one is geared for grades 3 through 6. And this one specifically is looking at providing the background knowledge needed to teach the components of beginning writing instruction, or sorry, not beginning writing instruction, writing instruction that can be integrated into any subject and aligned to the state literacy standards. So that one is great. Participants are going to learn practical strategies for teaching those writing skills. It's kind of a hands-on type of a professional learning. So then we do have on the next slide, I have some requirements to participate. Really, there are 2 full-day in-person trainings. Those will be from 8:30 to 3:30. They'll be somewhere around the Wasatch Front. We have most of our those have been scheduled already, and they're either at USBE or close by. So waiting on a couple to get scheduled. Part of the process is you'll go to those 2 days of professional learning and then make like an implementation plan as part of the reflection process after those days, kind of like a next steps. What am I going to do with this now that I went and I learned this? And then based on the feedback, because that will be submitted to Keys to Literacy, they'll take that feedback and they will create virtual implementation support sessions specifically based on what is part of the implementation reflection after the initial in-person PLs. So the other requirement is to virtually attend 2 of the 3 of those. And we do have the date set for those. They will be provided by grade level. And you may be asking, well, what if we have a coach? We want our coach, we maybe have a literacy director, someone who wants to do both. You can do both. Just know that it's 2 full days for early and 2 full days for content, and it's 2 to 3 virtual for implementing on that part. So there's a time commitment there, but we're really excited about it. On the next slide, we have our flyer. You can kind of see that flyer right there. I believe it's Denise is so quick to put that in our chat box for us. So because we have so many slots and there may be some moving around, we have a limited number in each session that we can have to meet the terms of our contract with Keys to Literacy. So we are asking you if you're interested. We would love you to share this out. We want to get to teachers. We want to get to our literacy coaches who are all in our building supporting this work. If you could have them complete the survey, you can share the flyer, complete the survey. We're going to open that survey up until January 31st, and then we are going to take that survey and we will do our very best to accommodate as many as we can into our sessions. And we'll hopefully by the end of that first week in February, Friday, February 7th, we'll be able to reach out and notify you and get you registered in Minus, which we will be doing ourselves. So very excited about that. Next up, we're going to have some kindergarten updates because kindergarten always seems to be such a hot topic. So on our next slide, we have our minimum school days. The board reinstated up to 5 days as educational service days to be used only at the beginning of the school year for kindergarten assessments. If you remember, those days were taken out, but the board reconsidered given stakeholder feedback, and they were very open to that. This is a choice that an LEA can make. You don't have to take all 5. It's completely your decision. But there are some things on that next slide that kind of shows you, like, if your LEA chooses to designate those educational service days, we kept the same requirements that were in there before just to make it uniform. So it was a process that was exactly the same. You just have to give parents sufficient advance notice. That, like always, it needs to be approved in an open meeting because it does affect the school calendar. And I just wanted to note, because I also got a lot of questions about this. Acadience is still the required assessment for kindergarten. Some LEAs may want to administer Acadience during those assessment days. Some may not. But as you remember, KEEP is no longer required. And also, by reinstating these days, we're not saying you have to administer Acadience that first week of school. We understand that many of you have assessment teams, and those assessment teams usually start maybe week 3 of school. So we just wanted to put that out there. And I also wanted to point out, I have had a lot of questions about, if we take these days, these educational service days, does that affect our funding at all? No, these days count as regular school days related to membership because they are designated as educational service days. So it doesn't affect membership. It doesn't affect funding. All right. Okay, next on up, we have R277631. This just went to our full board in our board meeting just last week. And there were just 2 slight changes. The first one was an LEA may adopt a policy requiring a background check for a parent's designee entering in a public multi-stall restroom for the purposes of aiding in toilet training. If you remember, the bill does have that caveat: if a parent doesn't want to, if a parent wants to continue to have their child enrolled and they're not toilet trained, but they're willing to work on that, whatever your policy is on that, there's the designee part of that, and this is what that addresses. You can adopt a policy. It's not a shall, it's just a may. And then there's this or. So you may adopt a policy requiring a background check, or you can just ensure that the toilet training assistance is done in a private or cleared restroom, which I believe is already a best practice out there. I just want to give you one little caveat that we do have this going. Our board recommended actually adjusting the rule, what's in state code right now, to eliminate the ability for a parent to have a designee assigned for toilet training. So watch this one during the session. It's part of the big bill that has all of our statutory changes that our board is requesting. So it is going to be up. It'll be up probably the first part of the session. So we'll just keep an eye on this. All right. And now I'm going to turn the time over to Denise.
Hi, everybody. Denise Majin, K-3 Literacy Specialist. I have kind of a hodgepodge of different things to talk with you today, just to make sure that you have the correct information to pass along to those in your LEA. So the first thing to let you know about is change management. So this is a professional learning that was part of SB 127, and it requires that all elementary principals, LEA literacy leaders, principal supervisors, and a member of LEA leadership to attend the change management professional learning. We have, after cohort 3, which the registration is closed, we will have about 700 people that have participated in this, but there's still some more people left. So we have our final cohort will be starting in February of 2026. And I just wanted to make sure that you have the dates for that, so that you can share that with people who might have missed the message that they were required to attend the change management professional learning. So cohort 3 is starting in February. We have 3 in-person dates throughout the state, and then all of the rest of the sessions are online. And then the same with cohort 4, when it is in February of 2026, there will be 3 in-person dates with everything else that is virtual. So just want to make sure know of that. And the flyer is in our folder if you need to share that with somebody. Then our next is the LIT training. So that is Learning Innovation Team. I just want to give you the dates for that so that you can hold that on your calendar and once again, share that with those in your LEA that would need to attend that with you. So you have the choice of June 3rd or June 12th. And if you want to plan on 9 through 3, like in the past, we will give all of the information at the beginning, and the end is planning and work time if you want to do that with us on the call with you to answer questions. So we'll give you more details after session. There might be some changes, but for now, we just want you to hold those dates and that time, and we'll give you more info in our March LD meeting. All right. Now, the Early Learning Tech Manual. So this has been updated and is on our website. I also dropped this into the folder for our meeting today. And it has the changes that were made last legislative session in the early learning plan. There also have been some updates to assessments like the KEEP going away, adding Kinder to Acadience. Then our assessment and accommodations team made some changes on assessment accommodations and added some resources and defined the difference between that. That is updated in the manual. And those parent letters for literacy and math are linked in there. And there were a lot of broken links because our website had changed. Those are now all fixed in the new manual. So you'll want to make sure and take a look at that. Then I'm sure we'll need to change it again after legislation in March, but for now, for a lovely 3 months, it is accurate and ready to use. All right. Just checking, no questions. Please put your questions in the chat if you have any, or unmute. I'm happy to answer your questions. Now, a couple of resources to share with you. Came across this great resource that was, there was one in 2022 and 2023. Now there is a 2024 version of Teaching Phonemic Awareness. This comes from a group of researchers, including Louisa Moats, that gives some guidance on phonemic awareness. So this is the most recent, as we know, with science and more research that things change. So this is giving you the most current information about best practices in teaching phonemic awareness. They made it more teacher-friendly, talks about dialect differences, gives some routines for teaching, blending, and segmenting, gives some suggestions on how to teach. And just once again, those authors are educators and researchers that have lots of experience. So that's a resource that you will want to peruse and share with others. And then I came across a great podcast. If you don't listen to the Amplify Science of Reading podcast, that's one I would add to your list. And in one of those episodes, it talked about a free resource of text. And so there's a link to the podcast, and it is readworks.org. It is a free text resource. It has print, digital, and audio versions of all of the text. On the audio, the majority of it is human read, which is awesome if you're using that for kids to hear a fluent reader. And what I was most excited about was they've added nonfiction decodables. So you can have decodable text that will support your content of what you're teaching in your tier 1. You can sign up for article a day, and it will send you an article every day for your class to read. The articles are in Spanish, and if you have the audio in Spanish, the person that is reading it is someone who speaks Spanish, so they're reading it in Spanish with the correct accents. So once again, something worth checking out if you want to check out their website, or if you want to listen to that episode, that podcast, it gives you a synopsis of all of the great things that ReadWorks does. That's free. And then to update you with some information on letters. So I felt it was important to make sure that you're aware that people who participate in letters should be getting USBE credit. And about every day, I get an email from somebody who has taken letters and has not gotten credit and is wanting to get credit. Number one, we want to give them credit because that helps them with their relicensure or lane changes. And then also it provides a record for everyone the same record for everyone to be able to see of their session participation and can prove their letters completion. So if originally when Norma was managing letters, she created Midas courses for all of the sessions and made sure that everybody got their credit. But since then or before then, some LEAs that are providing it on their own might have forgotten that step. So just wanted to remind you that you need to create a course in Midas, and there is a credit application that you would need to complete in order to give them credit. And if you use the document that I've given you, the credit application goes through all the professional learning standards, and the document that Julie created, you can copy and paste the answers from that document into the professional learning standards. So basically, it's like the answers to a test. So thank you for doing that, Julie, to save everybody a bunch of time. If you are not a Midas administrator and would like to do that, you can contact Midas to let them know that you need access to be an administrator, or you can find the Midas administrator at your LEA and let them know that you need to create these courses and then give the credit to people. So credit is one credit, one USB credit for each unit. So there's up to 8 credit hours available, or 8 credits available to those who have participated in all of the letters. So does anyone have, so Midas is for the live and online, both ones. So if you've been on the online letters, they do have you complete, and then they send you complete a survey at the end, and then they'll send you a certificate. But that is only to that person, and not everybody can see that you completed that. So even if it's online, you still should be doing Midas, and especially if it was in person, because if it's in person, there's no way to prove that they went to that course unless there was a Midas course and they are given credit and marked as being there. So any other questions on that? And please reach out if you have questions or need help. I'm happy to help you with that so that we can give everybody the credit that they deserve for all of that work that they did for letters. Okay, and then lastly, we have just a reminder about our Science of Reading nominations. We're right in the middle of vetting our next group to give them awards in the spring. Just to remember that you can nominate district, school leaders, teachers, and coaches for the award. I put the nomination form in, there's a link and they'll drop that in the chat. And just wanted to, one thing to simplify, because we've been getting a lot of nominations, which is fabulous. It is a requirement that they have completed letters or are progressing towards letters with their LEA, or letters for administrators if it's an administrator. That those were both requirements of SB 127. And so if someone is going to be a Science of Reading leader and get that award, they would have needed to complete that. So I did add on the nomination form a question for you to verify their letters completion prior to sending it to us, just to save us a step in the vetting process. We have about 10,000 that we can look up if they've completed letters, but there's people who have done it before or after we managed that. And so it just helps for you to make sure that they've done that before you nominate them, because if they have not done that, then they are not eligible for the award and we don't need to move forward on the vetting process. Okay, that was it for me. If you have questions, just unmute or put it in the chat.
I had a private message, and I thought I would address that question to the whole group because it's one that I've gotten before, and I think there may be some miscommunication out there. It has to do with the recommendation that Acadience has made to not test after 5 to 10 of 5. It's a recommendation to not test for 5 to 10 days when students are in school. So that is not in code and it's not in board rule. So I just wanted to clarify. I've gotten several emails about that. And then someone asked and I was like, oh, I'm thinking that there is, I think that may have been a practice that some LEAs have done and have told teachers, but there is nothing in code or board rule. It's just a recommendation. So if you are thinking, kindergarten wise, if you're thinking then that you would like to administer a cadence during your those educational service days, there's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that. Thank you.
Thanks for
Christine,
that.
for that.
Yeah. Thanks for that reminder. Yes, absolutely. It's more so of like allowing the students to come and get kind of settled in classes before we just like throw a test at them. And so I think that that's kind of where that best practice kind of comes in. I do want to share a couple of things with you that some resources that we received when we attended our Excel and Ed group this last fall. So they have an Early Literacy Matters website, and the links are both on the slides. And on that, there are just some great resources of what different states are doing as far as early literacy and some of the things that are going on around the country to help support literacy around our country and our nation. And also on that link, they have Raising Reader Parent Tools. So just another set of resources that you can guide parents to helping them when with helping their students. So we do have our UEN website that does have parent resources, but the Early Literacy Matters has some additional resources as well. And then I did want to kind of, Courtney, if you could go to the next slide. We have our LD listserv. So we changed this over this last fall. I sent out several reminders throughout the spring and the summer that we were going to be shifting to a UEN listserv. It just helps us to track people a little bit better for when they for those who need to be in our listserv and who do not. We had we had over 400 people on our other listserv. A lot of them were teachers in the classrooms, and when we were notifying about important things that maybe should only be an LEA lens, it was causing a lot of questions to come up from teachers where we were directing them back to their LEA. So to sign up for our Literacy Director listserv, if you haven't, please send an email with subscribe to the email that is there on the thing, on the slide, and Denise dropped it in the chat box as well. And or if you're or you can just email Charlotte directly and she can add you to our listserv. We do send out an email every Tuesday with news and updates and teaching tips. So if you are not getting those every Tuesday, check your spam or junk folder and mark us as an email that you would like to not see in those folders. And so that you can be sure to get the latest information and be up to date with that. I am going to just pause right here for a second because in my leadership team chat for teaching and learning, our teaching and learning department, I just got word, like this is hot off the presses, folks, that a bill just dropped on yesterday. I'm going to drop the link in the chat box that does kind of impact possibly potentially many programs and their funding. So this bill, just an overview of what we are hearing about this bill. It is looking to lump many programs into the WPU, which means they do not become specifically earmarked for specific things, and the professional learning grant is one of them. So news on that front. There is a catch-22 with it being rolled into the WPU. One thing is it does grow. The bad thing is it's no longer earmarked specifically for professional learning for early literacy or early math. So then it becomes a fight within your LEA to get those funds to be able to do what you were able to do in the past with those funds. There are many other programs that are also looking to be rolled into this, including the Digital Teaching and Learning Grant Program, which would affect what programs you select, whether it be Lexia, Imagine Learning. What are some of the other big players in that? IXL, iReady, you know, some of those digital teaching and learning, the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Elementary Arts Program, dual language immersion, appropriations for student success program. I thought I saw something about student health and counseling support. So take a look at that bill and dive deep into that, and please provide your feedback for that as well. So like literally that was just coming in my chat box over here on my Teams messages. So wanted to share that with you so that you could express how you feel about that with your legislators as well. Okay, thank you. And then Courtney, if we want to jump to the next slide. This is just a list of resources for our upper elementary grade students and our teen readers. So, you know, there has been a lot of focus around the country about how do we support K-3 in the science and advancing the science of reading to really start our students off well with being able to become readers. But we are also realizing that we also need to provide support for our upper elementary and junior high and high school readers, because kids, just because they didn't get there by third grade doesn't mean we should just leave them out to hang. So here are some different resources that we have had shared with us about the secondary space and the upper elementaries to be able to support and help students. So those are some resources that you can share with your other teachers as well. Future LD meetings, so that you can have them on your calendar. We have our last meeting for this year will be March 25th, and it will be kind of jam-packed. We will go over things that took place in the session, what has come out of that. And then we do, like we did with our Tier 1 curriculum today with Wonders and CKLA and Interreading, we want to do a follow-up with that with our Tier 2 and Tier 3 curriculums. So we'll focus on Tier 2 and Tier 3 and be able to break you out by your groups to be able to discuss how, the programs that we're seeing and interventions that are being used, to be able to have those discussions to support around that as well. And then next year we have our LD meeting dates on this slide. They will be from 9 to 12, and we are going to do virtual only for the upcoming year as well. So, and then I think, is that our last one? Yay. So now we have our Q&A time. We are here to answer any questions that you may have, provide answers that we may know of, and provide the support that we need. So this is your time to let us know if you have any questions that we can help and support. If not, you're happy to stay on and hear if other people's questions might pertain to you. And if not, we will see you in March, and don't hesitate to reach out if you ever have any questions between now and then.